Pac Man World 2 is just one example of an absolute classic title from the 6th generation of consoles. This might just be me, but it feels like there are the new games from the 8th and 9th generation, there are the retro games from the 1st to the 4th generation, and then there are those other ones in the middle. With retro gaming being as popular as it is, it seems like this era hasn't quite become old enough to get the love it deserves. Well, I want that to change, so I've decided that I'm going to start replaying some of the games from that era for YouTube. Or maybe those games are considered retro, and I just want a reason to replay old games I liked when I was younger. Either way, I'm starting with Pac Man World 2. Pac Man World 2 is a 3D platforming game that was released on February 24th, 2002 for the PC, PlayStation 2, Xbox, and GameCube. Believe it or not, it's actually a sequel to a game by the name of Pac Man World that was released for the PlayStation in 1999. I've never played the original game, but I'm not too upset about that. It also had a sequel released in 2005, and it has the mind-blowing title of Pac Man World 3. Yeah, I know, it's crazy. For a game released in 2002, the graphics still hold up fairly well. Overall, I think the game looks pretty good. The reason for this is of course because of the cartoony art style, with which every game invariably ages better graphically speaking. However, even when comparing it to other games of the time period, I still think it looks decent. There are only really two minor issues that I noticed in this department. The first one you probably already noticed, and it's the eye-burningly high saturation. I think this makes more sense in a game like Pac Man, as opposed to, say, a game that's supposed to look more realistic, Oblivion. However, after a while of playing, especially the first 5 levels, my eyes got very tired very quickly. Another issue is the cutscenes. They're significantly blurrier than the actual gameplay. It's not super noticeable, however, I still think it's worth mentioning. At the end of the day, these issues are only slight annoyances, and overall, I'd say the game looks good. Not great, but good. What I think the game does do great, however, are the controls. What I mean by that more specifically are the actions that you're able to do as Pac Man. It's pretty basic, but that's what I enjoy about it. And before I get too far into this, I just want to mention that I'm going to be talking about the controls that are on Xbox, because that's what I use to play it. But anyways, the left analog stick is how you walk around, the right analog stick is how you can kind of move the god-awful camera, and the A button is to jump. So those are the obvious controls, but there are a few extra things you can do. Firstly, you can hold X to do a rev roll. This essentially just launches you in whatever direction you're facing. It's used mainly off of ramps to get to platforms that are too far to jump to, but it also has some other unexpected applications as well. While in the process of rev rolling, you can press A to stop yourself, and if you accidentally move the left analog stick in any direction, you will launch yourself full speed that way, and most likely off of any platform you were trying to land on. There are also a couple things Pac Man can do while jumping. If you press A mid-jump, you'll perform a butt bounce. This is the main way to kill enemies, use jump pads, and activate buttons. The last thing Pac Man can do is a kickflip. This is achieved by pressing X while mid-jump. I would say this is the most useless thing you're able to do, except we'll get to that one soon enough. The only thing you can really use the kickflip for is breaking boxes that are floating in the air, but I actually really like how Pac Man is controlled overall. All of the moves you can do with him have their place in the gameplay and make the gameplay satisfying. The only issue is the camera. The camera is located far away from Pac Man, so you get a really wide angle view as you play. This makes sense for a platforming game because you need to be able to see where you're jumping to. The problem is that if there's any object located anywhere within the massive distance from Pac Man to the camera, it blocks you from being able to move it. As a result, there are parts throughout the entire game where you're unable to move the camera to see the platform you need to jump to, so you have to jump blindly and pray that you aimed your jump correctly. On top of that, the camera seemingly has a mind of its own and constantly moves itself to awkward angles. The best example of this I can think of is an unbelievably frustrating part at the end of the level called Magma Opus, where you have to roll down and try not to fall off of a series of narrow slides full of holes. During this, the camera goes wherever it wants all over the place, leaving you wholly unaware of what's going on until you fall off and die. But on the topic of death, this game starts with 4 ghosts sneaking around Pac Village late at night. These ghosts, of course, are the same ghosts from all other Pac Man games: Blinky, Pinky, Inky, and Clyde. Once they arrive at a big tree in the center of the village, they pick all of these golden fruits off of it. This action inadvertently summons a demon named Spooky out from under the tree.
At last, I am free from the confines of this accursed prison.
Spooky convinces all of the ghosts to steal and hide the golden fruits in order to eliminate the Pac people.
Want to get rid of these Pac people forever!
The next morning, Pac Man wakes up and Professor Pac tells him what happened. He also blesses us with some amazing Pac lore about Spooky the Demon.
Pac Man! Terrible, terrible news! Pacland is in serious danger. The ghosts have unwittingly unleashed an ancient evil upon us by removing the golden fruit from the tree. According to this book, our ancestors fought against this very evil. In ancient times, the great wizard Pac created a powerful potion that turned 5 fruit from Pacland into the golden fruit that was stolen today. Armed with these magical fruit and a great deal of bravery, Sir Pac-a-Lot faced the all-powerful ghost known as Spooky. Sir Pac-a-Lot defeated Spooky and imprisoned him. And he has remained there until now. Pac-Man, the golden fruit are in the hands of the devious ghosts, and Spooky is on the loose again. You must retrieve the golden fruit and defeat Spooky, or all of Pacland will be doomed.
So just to quickly recap, your main objective in this game is to find and take golden fruits from 4 different ghosts in order to recapture a genocidal demon. The game begins in Pac Village, which is in the first section called Forest. In the village, there are just a few buildings and a bunch of collectibles. These collectibles are Pac Dots, a bunch of different fruits, Galaxian flagships, and tokens. You just need to touch these in order to get them, except to collect the Galaxian flagship, you'll also need to beat a classic Pac-Man maze level. You need to collect all of these in each level in order to 100% complete it. Also, there is an arcade in Pac Village where tokens are used to play the games there. This level also introduces the first enemy, the Ghost. This is just like any normal Pac-Man ghost, and you can just take care of it with a power pellet. After Pac Village, there's a level called Bare Basics that acts as a tutorial level. It basically just teaches all the controls I explained earlier, but it also introduces a new enemy called the Pac Cub, and it shows off the steel ball power-up that allows you to sink underwater, as well as resist all fire damage. The rest of the forest section levels are pretty similar platforming levels, but they do introduce some new enemies. There's the Pac Bear, which is just a big version of the Pac Cub, the Pacocytes, which are basically just normal chihuahuas, and these little kangaroo things. These are just called whatever color they are, so red, green, or blue. At the end of this forest section, Pac-Man runs into Clyde, who the game calls Blinky, even though Blinky is the red one, and this dude is clearly orange. Clyde controls a giant frog that shoots its tongue at the player. To defeat it, you just have to butt bounce on the tongue when it's wooden, and then when it turns metal, you rev-roll at the frog's open mouth via the tongue. It's the first boss battle, and it's pretty easy. After the fight, you retrieve the golden cherry. The next section is called Treetops. The first level in this section introduces the Badoing, which is a platform that launches you high into the air. These levels are mainly just a lot of platforming, which is probably the reason why I like this section so much. It's a bit more difficult than the last section, but it's still easily completed. It includes a lot of saws and fire as obstacles, and there aren't many enemies besides just a few ghosts. At the end of this section is the boss battle against Inky. Inky pilots what is essentially an upside-down helicopter with a massive saw blade rotary wing and a face for some reason. It's called the Blade-O-Matic. At first, it shoots blades at you, and you just have to rev-roll at it. Then it tries to cut you with the main blade, so you just have to jump on its head. That's a bit easier said than done, but it's overall not a very difficult boss. After the fight, you get yourself a nice golden strawberry. Next, we go to the section called Snow Mountains. At the start, Pac Ranger tells you that you can kill the rev-roll rams by rev-rolling at them and then butt bouncing on their heads. But when I played, I didn't read anything he said, so I never figured out how to actually kill them. But as it turns out, walking away from them works just as well. But yeah, these icy levels are just that, icy. There's a lot of slipping and sliding going on, which is an extra factor you have to deal with and which I think is pretty fun. Most of the time anyways. There's a part where you have to run away from not one, but 2 avalanches. Luckily, on the second avalanche, these blowy boys are there to help you get away. Then, finally, at the top of the mountain, you get to ice skate down it. This level is called Blade Mountain, and it's one of my favorite parts of the entire game. It's challenging in a good way, and look at that, a kickflip! Those are rare. Pac Ranger even assumes that you forgot that kickflips were a thing and reminds you of their existence at the beginning of the level. But finally, at the end of the section, there's of course a boss fight against yet another ghost. This time it's Inky. At the beginning of the level, she says, "Spooky was right. You've never wanted me. Well, if I can't have you, nobody will." Weird? This boss is very simple. She just shoots snowballs at you, and all you gotta do is rev-roll at the thing over and over again. Seems simple, right? Well, I had to watch someone else do it on YouTube because I couldn't figure out what to do and kept dying over and over again. Once I got it, it was easy, but I think the reason I couldn't figure it out is because of the angled bedoings next to all the platforms. These have no use except getting you back to the main platform, which you can just simply walk over to. But anyways, once she's defeated, you acquire 1 tasty looking golden apple. Or gapple if you're one of those weird Minecraft players. The next section is in a volcano. This volcano, of course, has lava. Lots of lava. It is also home to many strange creatures. You've got your pukas, which are from Dig Dug and don't attack you but do explode. There's that one singular puka plant that isn't from anywhere else. Just this one plant in this one level in this one game. And then, of course, there's my favorite one, Spongegar. And the Stonies. Named so, of course, because... and many more. The last level in this section, Magma Opus, is the level I was stuck on and never got past when I was a kid. Now as an adult, I can proudly say I've conquered it, but only barely. This slide part I mentioned earlier is the most annoying part of the entire game. The most difficult part of the game, I would say, is the boss of this section. The level is called Clyde in the Caldera, but as I said before, the game mixes up Clyde and Blinky, so you actually fight Blinky here. And what a fight he puts up. It took me over an hour to beat this boss, which is about how much time I would usually take to play through like 7 or so levels. He shoots fireballs at you, pretty standard, but those fireballs start the ground on fire. On top of that, the machine is immune to rev rolls, so in order to do damage, there are 2 things you have to do. Sometimes the machine goes over near an outer platform, and you have to rev roll over to it, hopefully land, and then jump on its head. The other times, it spins around the main platform while bobbing up and down, so you have to time your jumps absolutely perfectly so you can land while it's lower. Otherwise, you'll just bounce off. But while this boss is incredibly difficult, I still think it's a fun time, as well as one of the most memorable parts of the game. After all that hard work, you'll win yourself a nice golden pear. The next section is called Ocean, and it's by far my least favorite part of the entire game. For the first 2 levels, you're just swimming forward, and all you can do is this twirl thing to break boxes. You have to dodge a myriad of sea creatures and mines, but you move so slowly. Most of this section was me hoping that I was on the correct part of the screen. Otherwise, I wouldn't have time to dodge whatever was coming at me in time. It's just kind of boring, really. Eventually, you're given a submarine, which allows you to move more quickly around the screen, but it's still just really repetitive and boring. You're shooting submarine ghosts and mines over and over again, and it's just too easy. The boss of this section isn't much to write home about either. All of the ghosts came together to build a mega whale, which is just a big submarine. It shoots submarine ghosts and mines at you. You just have to dodge those, and then shoot torpedoes at the mega whale's propellers to blow them up. Once you blow up all the propellers, you'll find the golden banana. The final section is the Ghost Bayou. I actually enjoyed the entirety of this section. The first level has you on roller skates, gliding over dock after dock while ghosts throw fireballs at you. Eventually, the docks start breaking out from under you, and honestly, I didn't expect this game to ever have me at the edge of my seat, but here we are. The next level is an amalgamation of everything in the game prior, except spookier, and with skeletons and spiders. The level is full of bedoings and moving platforms, and there's also a part with a spider-infested maze. Not exactly a unique level, but solid. The next level, on the other hand, is pretty unique. So there's this tree called Wormwood, who is the evil tree of Ghost Island, and it's guarded by a bunch of fencing. In order to get inside of this fencing, there's an absolutely massive maze that is by far the biggest in the game you need to get through, and it's infested with skeletons. On top of that, activating buttons opens up new areas from before, so you have to constantly backtrack to proceed forward. There's this one part that took me an insane amount of time to beat, and it's when you have 30 seconds to kill 20 skeletons. The skeletons are spread apart from each other, and a few of them are down an entirely separate path of the maze from the rest. When I finally beat it, there was quite literally 0 seconds left on the timer, and I somehow killed 2 skeletons with 1 bounce on 0. I should have lost, but I'm so happy I didn't. Once the maze is completed, Spooky comes out and tells you he's going to make you pay by attacking Pac Village. Once Pac-Man gets back to Pac Village, he puts all of the golden fruits onto the tree, which makes him turn golden. Spooky comes out from behind the tree, thus commencing the final boss battle. Which is really underwhelming. He throws a bunch of stuff at you while spinning around the tree. All you have to do is chase after him and kickflip him to do damage. It's pretty mid-tier when it comes to boss difficulty. Harder than Blinky's frog, but certainly easier than Clyde in the caldera. But hey, at least the kickflip makes another rare appearance. Once the fight is over, the tree sucks Spooky back under it, imprisoning him once again.
My ghost will free me again!
And Pac Village lives happily ever after. I really enjoyed playing this game again. The controls and platforming are satisfying, the story is goofy as hell, the soundtrack is catchy, and it was genuinely challenging at times. With that said, there were certainly parts of the game I didn't enjoy. The entirety of the ocean section I did not have fun playing, and that's like a sixth of the game. Of course, there's that horrible camera, and I also wasn't really able to sit down for more than an hour at a time to play because it just got tiring. This is for a few reasons. There's of course the saturation like I mentioned before, but that's really only a problem in the first part of the game. The other issue is the audio. In some parts, the game just plays the same audio clip over and over again. Here's just a taste of that. Yeah, it gets annoying after a while. Something else I've noticed about the game is that it's simultaneously a very basic, samey 3D platformer and unique at the same time. It uses a lot of gameplay elements that are common in other games, especially from this era, but it combines them all and then makes almost random levels gameplay-wise. When you go through these levels, 1 minute you're fighting enemies, then you're platforming, then you're rev-rolling across a ravine, then you're solving a maze, etc., etc. None of these things are necessarily unique on their own, but when put into a format like this, they're pretty unique. I also really enjoyed the enemies in this game. I don't really know what to say about them besides just that the game really keeps you guessing what quirky plant/animal/thing you're gonna see next. Overall, I didn't see a huge amount of flaws, and I'd give this game a 7.5 out of 10. But anyways, shout out to David for his support, and thank you for watching.